Greetings, good morning, welcome to Rootwork, the local edition on KPFK Radio, Pacifica Radio in Los Angeles, 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM San Diego, 99.5 FM Ridgecrest China Lake, and streaming all over the world at kpfk.org. And welcome to those of you checking us out on YouTube on the Black Liberation Media platform. Again, this is Rootwork. My name is Tandasizwe Shimarenga. It's Thursday, December 19th. It is the third Thursday of the month. That means it's time for the local edition of Rootwork. And the local edition, the priority of Rootwork on the local edition is to amplify local voices, perspectives, concerns, and movements. It's the end of the year, so we're also going to try and hit a couple of other corners while we're out here. And we are in Fund Drive. I believe Fund Drive ends tomorrow. That is the last day of the winter Fund Drive for KPFK, part of the 5-station Pacifica Radio Network. So you know what to do. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. Make a pledge of support, of financial support, a secure donation to help keep this station on the air, to help keep the transmitter transmitting in Southern California. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. We will accept any amount. You can give $5 just to shut me up. But if you donate $25, then you become a member of the station for 1 year, which gives you the opportunity to participate in its governance. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. We're going to be talking today about the immigration concerns of specifically Black immigrants before President Biden and Vice President Harris get on up out the White House. We're going to be looking at some other events unique to the Black world, but with implications around the world. We're going to be doing that with our special guest today, Nana Gyamfi. But first, these news headlines.
That came a day after Ukraine's security service leveled criminal charges against him. Donna Warder reports.
Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was head of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical defense forces, and he was killed by a bomb today, one day after Ukraine's security agency charged him with using banned chemical weapons during Russia's military operation in Ukraine. A Ukrainian official says the country's security service carried out the attack, and the bomb, which was hidden in a scooter outside Kirillov's apartment building in Moscow, went off as the general left for his office. His assistant also was killed. Russian news reports say the bomb was triggered remotely. Kirillov was under sanctions from several countries, including the UK and Canada, for his actions in Moscow's war in Ukraine. I'm Donna Warder.
After months of deadlock, Israel and Hamas appear to be moving closer towards a ceasefire to end their 14-month war. Top officials from the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt have resumed their mediation efforts in recent weeks and reported greater willingness by the warring sides to wrap up a deal. In a key concession, Hamas officials say they are prepared to show more flexibility on the timing of an Israeli troop withdrawal from Gaza. Israel's defense minister Israel Katz said yesterday that a deal is closer than ever. The agreement is expected to take place in phases and include a halt in fighting, an exchange of captive Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners, and a surge in aid to Gaza. Cyclone Cheeto, a Category 4 storm, tore through the southwestern Indian Ocean over the weekend, hitting northern Madagascar before intensifying and slamming the French island of Mayotte with winds exceeding 136 miles per hour. This according to France's weather service. Cheeto later moved into northern Mozambique, causing further damage before weakening. French President Emmanuel Macron said he will travel to Mayotte as rescue teams rush to locate the missing. The Interior Minister says the French island was devastated after Cyclone Chido hit the territory. At least 20 people have been confirmed dead, but authorities fear that hundreds, if not thousands of people could have died in the disaster. Ross Collin reports.
The French Interior Minister says the island of Mayotte has been completely devastated. Bruno Retailleau added that there is, quote, nothing left of the shanty towns. Mayotte is struggling in the aftermath of the worst cyclone to hit the island in almost 100 years. The president says he will be travelling to the Indian Ocean Territory in the coming days, and the race is on to locate survivors and provide water, food and shelter, and also to try to prevent the spread of disease. Ross Cullen, Paris.
Police say a 15-year-old student opened fire inside a study hall at a small Christian school in Wisconsin, killing a teacher and a teenager. Jennifer King reports.
The shooter died on the way to the hospital. Police say she apparently took her own life.
A second grade student called 911 at 10:57 a.m.
Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes.
3 people, including the shooter, are dead. The shooter has now been identified as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow.
6 others were wounded, including 2 students who were in critical condition. A teacher and 3 students had less serious injuries.
I know that my daughter is safe.
Bethany Hyman was among the parents who rushed to Abundant Life Christian School.
I pray for the hearts of the students, the teachers, the staff members.
A motive for the shooting was not immediately known. Police are talking to the shooter's family and searching the home. In a statement, the White House said President Joe Biden had been briefed on the shooting and cited the tragedy in calling on Congress to pass stricter gun safety measures. I'm Jennifer King.
President-elect Donald Trump sued the Des Moines Register and pollster J.N. Seltzer yesterday, alleging fraud over a pre-election poll showing Vice President Kamala Harris leading in Iowa. The poll, released days before Election Day, showed Harris ahead by 3 points. Trump ultimately won the state by 14 points. The lawsuit filed in Polk County accuses Seltzer and the Register of deception under Iowa's consumer fraud laws, claiming the poll was intentional election interference. Trump seeks damages and an order barring further deceptive polls while requiring the release of data used in the survey. The Register defended its reporting, saying it released full polling data and stood by its methodology. Seltzer declined to comment. At a time of heightened political division, Americans' confidence in their country's judicial system and courts dropped to a record low of 35% this year. That's according to a new Gallup poll. The United States saw a sharp drop of 24 percentage points over the last 4 years, setting the country apart from other wealthy nations where most people on average still express trust in their systems. The drop wasn't limited to one end of the political spectrum. Confidence dropped among people who disapproved of the country's leadership under President Joe Biden, as well as among those who approved. I'm Scott Baba for Pacifica Radio.
This is KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, and for the world at www.kpfk.org. My name is Maggie Lepeak.
I'm Gary Baca.
And we're here to talk to you for a few minutes about a project we have going. It is the Transmitter Repair Fund in our December fund drive. Now, we have an exciting opportunity to improve broadcast quality and connect with communities that need our message. However, we can't do it without you. Please support the Transmitter Repair Fund in our December fund drive by calling 818-985-5735, option 2. Gary, what's that number again?
818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, option 2.
Or pledge online anytime at kpfk.org. Any additional funds raised for this project will support our daily operations, including resuming regular maintenance at our transmitter site. Now here's something special, Gary, so get ready. Drum roll, please. John Densmore, legendary drummer and founding member of The Doors, and a wonderful friend to this radio station, has donated $5,000. That's 5 G's.
Whoa.
To our Transmitter Repair Fund. And you know what, Gary? John said, let's match this.
Yes. And the transmitter is something that we need. We need to be heard and not silenced. So it's up to you to go to your phone now and support this separate fund that we have to maintain our transmitter. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Go to your phone now. Even if you pledged before and pledged for the station, this is very important. This is something that we're trying to do and individually reach out to you. We need a strong signal. So it's up to you to come up front and step up and help us out. That way we can keep KPFK with this signal going all over Southern California. 112,000 watts of listener-sponsored radio. So big shout out to John Densmore from the Doors
John.
for helping us out. And it's many people like you that help us out during this time of need. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Let the phone room know that you want to help us with our transmitters.
That's right, Gary. It's people powered and you have the power. Call us right now, 818-985-5735. Hit option 2. That's 818-985-KPFK and online anytime at kpfk.org. Now, Gary, for 65 years, KPFK has been a vital part of our community with the goal of bringing together the voices, music, and stories that define Southern California. Once again, it comes down to you. We cannot do this work without you. This project requires new power supplies for the transmitter, replacing the ice shields for the antenna, upgrading the cooling system for the control building, and adding a new dry line to hydrator unit. The total cost of this project is $20,000, and we're asking for your help to make this a reality. With John Densmore's $5,000 pledge, we're on our way to reaching our goal, but we can actually double that goal if we can match the $5,000.
Yes, let's match that. So $5,000 on the table. So that would mean maybe 5 of you pledging $1,000, or maybe that's 10 of you pledging $500. Whatever you can do makes a difference. $250 per person will get us to that $10,000 match. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Once we do this, we're good. This is one of the last things on our list that we need to fix. And as we change as a radio station, we're going to make sure that we give you the programming that you need and love. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK.
818-985-5735. Press option 2 to donate. Your gift of any size brings us closer to realizing this dream. Together, we can ensure that KPFK continues to inspire, inform, and uplift more people than ever before. Join us in powering up for the future. Power to the people. To contribute, visit www.kpfk.org/support-KPFK. You'll see the transmitter icon on the website. Just click that. It'll take you right where you need to go. Also, if you wanted to contact me, feel free to email me at mlepique@kpfk.org. That's MLEPIQUE@kpfk.org. Every dollar counts, and your support truly matters.
Just one of many bills that we have. But John Densmore from the Doors, can you imagine the Doors? I mean, this iconic group that gave us Light My Fire and Hello, I Love You is challenging us and asking you. John Densmore is literally asking you to pledge your support. He put down the $5,000. I just can't believe it. John Densmore, out of all people, the drummer from the Doors, is challenging us and saying, you know what, I'm going to help you guys out. But if I'm going to put this money in, I want other people to pledge and put their money in as well.
That's right.
So that's why it's so important. And it's an honor to have John Densmore contributing to this radio station, listening and supporting us as he has through the many years, along with Robbie Krieger from the Doors. So, you know, he's challenging us to step up. So pledge at any amount you can. Any amount helps. And you'll be right in there with John Densmore and the KPFK family. So that means you call now, 818-985-5735.
And one of the most famous, iconic, there's so many of them, Gary, from the Doors. Thank you so much, John Densmore. But you know what we need to do, Gary? We need to break on through to the other side.
Let's do it.
Show your support. Call us right now. It's people powered. You have the power. 818-985-5735. Hit option 2. That's 818-985-KPFK and online anytime at kpfk.org. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Maggie. And thank you to our listeners and the people pledging and calling in now. 818-985-5735. Don't forget, people-powered independent radio.
You got the power. Thank you so much. And let's make this happen together. Happy holidays, everyone.
Eight 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. That is the phone number to make that donation towards the transmitter, keeping the transmitter, helping with the upkeep for the transmitter, one of the strongest signals out here in Southern California, KPFK Radio. KPFK.org is the web address where you can make a secure donation. And let me just state, even though this is KPFK's fall fund drive, the last fund drive of the year, I was speaking with Nana Gyamfi yesterday, and I was talking about the outlook for nonprofit journalism is so much healthier than what mainstream corporate legacy, whatever they want to call it, media, because their model is based on advertising, whereas the nonprofits appeal directly to you. So in addition, if you're joining us on YouTube, on the Black Liberation Media platform, then you know we always looking for money from y'all. So you know what to do. You can see the ticker scrolling down there. I don't want to take away too much from KPFK, but y'all know what to do. Y'all know how to hit a Cash App and a Venmo and a Patreon, in addition to supporting your local journalism, your local news reports. Also, real quick, for those of you who are listening on the radio, I do this show on YouTube on the Black Liberation Media platform. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of the folks who are here. Some have been here for a while. Some of them are new. Robin C., good morning. Hey, Sugar Shan, how you doing? Hello, Brittany Bowman. Yeah, Yipper 99, I see that. No tech issues, Christmas miracle. I'm gonna remember that, Yipper. Folks be trying to talk about me and my, what is it? Tech divergent or tech spicy. Yeah, okay, you got jokes. It's all good though. It's all good. Yes, Brittany, the Doors did make a lot of great music. El Manifesto, how are you doing today? Hey, Jamon, how y'all doing? Yeah, y'all got jokes. It's okay though. It's quite all right. Like I said, I remember. I remember stuff. And anyway, before I get too carried away, let me get on to our guest today. So, if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that a lot has been going on in Western Africa. A lot has been going on in terms of throwing out the last remnants of colonialism, the current remnants of neo-colonialism, specifically in West Africa, specifically in French West Africa. But before we get to that, I want to talk about what's happening with Black folks of African descent, new Black immigrants to the United States and the Black community in general, where Black immigrants usually find themselves, our neighbors, our family members, our brothers and sisters, our cousins. So in order to do that, I've asked Nana Gyamfi to join with me today to talk about that. Now, Nana Gyamfi is the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, or BAJI. It's a Black US-based national organization that fights for the rights of Black migrants and African Americans, not or African Americans. It fights to improve the conditions of Black Diasporic communities and to advance racial justice and migrant rights. A movement attorney for the past 30 years, Nana is co-founder of Justice Warriors for Black Lives and Human Rights Advocacy, both of which are dedicated to fighting for human rights and Black liberation. She has served as the president of the National Conference of Black Lawyers. She is also a former professor in the Pan-African Studies Department at California State University, Los Angeles. And if you are a listener to KPFK here in Los Angeles, You know Nana Gyamfi as the host of Conversations on the Way, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. She's all of those things. But I know Nana Gyamfi as a student of the late illustrious Dr. James Turner, one of the founders of Black Studies at Cornell University in New York. I also know her as an activist, organizer, a worker around Pan-Africanism and human rights in the Black community, specifically of Los Angeles, for at least 30-something years. Nana Gyamfi, thank you so much for being on Rootwork today.
Yay, thank you. I'm always glad to be here. Always, always, always.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, because you are currently not in the U.S. Is that correct?
That is correct. Greetings from Ghana. I'm here, halfway jet lagged, but I'm here, Dr. Sizwe, ready to make it happen. Enjoying the day that I've had so far here in the motherland, and hoping that it continues to be good as we prepare to head back and do some fighting.
Well, real quick, I think I asked you for some kente. I'm gonna need some Adinkra jewelry too, but we can talk about that later. We can talk about that offline. But I just want to put that bug in your ear now. We'll come back to that later. So now,
Okay.
BAJI, the Black Alliance for a Just Immigration, fights for the rights of not only Black migrants but African Americans. Tell our audience about that, and just in case they're not familiar.
Absolutely. So BAJI was started in 2006, was started by veterans, civil rights, human rights, and anti-apartheid activists that came from the US, from the Caribbean, and the continent. Really looking at what was happening in that time in the space of immigration rights movements, things happening in the United States, and saying, hey, we got two conversations that are missing here. One conversation is the conversation around Black migrants, who are clearly invisibilized in the immigration discussion. Most of us, when we hear migrants out here in this world, in the United States, we think of migrants that are not Black, right? We think of immigrants that aren't Black. And so that was one issue. And then the other,
here in Los Angeles.
Especially here in Los Angeles, in spite of having, right, the largest population of Belizeans outside of Belize in the world, including a lot of Black Belizeans. And then you have the conversation with respect to African Americans, and you've heard this before, Tana Sizwe, where you'll hear immigrant rights activists or organizers say, immigrants are the ones who built this country, just erasing 400 plus years of Black people. Africans who then became African Americans, who actually built this country and made it so that other people were willing to leave their countries or think of the US as a place that they could go to, leaving their countries for, the various reasons that we leave. And so the purpose of BAJI is to focus on Black folks, both as the Black immigrant population, as well as African Americans, understanding that our fates have always been intertwined, understanding that we are all Black people, that we're not going to have liberation with just one of us. African Americans are not going to have liberation without 20% of their population, between foreign-born and children of foreign-born Black folks also moving in that direction. And clearly, Black immigrants are not going to leapfrog over African Americans into some American dream land of white milk and honey. Like, none of that is happening. And just clairvoyance and also history studying, right, and actual work on the part of the people who started BAJI to really understand what needed to be done. And we see in this moment how critical the work of BAJI is, particularly with this concerted effort to pit African Americans, long-term Black migrants, and newly arrived Black migrants against each other in ways that will only pull back and all of the gains that have been made in terms of human rights for Black folks in this country.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to mention their name. But at any rate, so the Biden administration, they're getting ready to get on up out, along with Vice President Harris. But BAJI, along with other organizations, have some concerns, want to see a couple of things happen, despite probably about a month to go in President Biden's in Biden's presidency. Let our audience know what those things are.
Well, some of these things are things that he promised to do that he just never did. I mean, no surprise, a bunch of lists. Everyone got a list, all of our various movements. But for example, he promised that he was going to shut down detention prisons, particularly private detention prisons. If you recall, Tennessee's way, California actually voted to close down those prisons. Trump sued to keep them open. Biden kept the suits alive. So even in places where we voted to end the prisons, the Biden administration is fighting us to keep the prisons going. And so we definitely want to make sure that detention prisons are closed, that those contracts are not open, and he can do that. He has actually increased the number of beds, quote unquote, for detention prisons, as well as regular federal prisons. Obviously, that's not what we're looking for. We need for him to stop that now. He has that capacity to do that. We are looking at the border. He's created this asylum ban at the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, basically, that a lot of organizations, including BAJI, fought back against. He did that as an executive. This was not Congress. He can reverse that right now. There's some temporary protected status for Black countries, particularly countries from the continent, that he could establish now and protect some people from being deported in the next couple of months. For example, for the Congo, for Mali, Mauritania. And then there's some that he already has that he could expand for Sudan, for Haiti. All of that are things that he could do right now without having to reach out to Congress. And there's some people that are in the process of deportation that he, as the executive, has the power to end their deportation cases, just like a DA can reject cases. In the same way, the prosecutors in immigration court could decide to dismiss cases. And our folks are so disproportionately deported, many of them based upon criminal contact or contact with the police, that includes walking while Black, driving while Black. We know the deal. And so those could actually be dismissed, keeping families and communities together. We're asking him to do that as well. That's just the top. I mean, there's maybe another 5 things, but just focusing on those main things that would really make a difference in terms of our capacity to keep our families and communities together and continue to move together to get the thriving that we deserve as Black folks in this country.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier about Los Angeles being home to the largest grouping of Belizeans outside of Belize. We also have what we're calling the Nipsey factor, the Nipsey Hussle factor here in Los Angeles. Tell our folks about that.
So it's so interesting. BAJI runs around telling people, hey, this person's an immigrant. Hey, that person's immigrant rooted, because a lot of times we don't think of that person that way. So Nipsey Hussle, most people just thought of him as Nipsey Hussle, right? In terms of a rapper, also was with Rolling 60s by his own conversation. And people didn't understand that he was half Eritrean, if there's such a thing as half, right? Eritrean. He's like my son, a African, as my brother calls him. And so when he was killed, this is when you suddenly saw all of the Eritrean community came down. They did their own pieces at their own ceremonies. They also were right there at the marathon in the community, showing their respect. You heard more conversations about that, about his background, which he was actually really proud of. So it wasn't like he was hiding it. It's just somehow when you're a person such as myself, such as he was, that was born in this country, or even if you weren't born in this country, you have like a USian accent. Even though people know that something is going on, they kind of forget it and they blur it out of their brain, and you just become this Black person, which on the one hand is lovely.
Which is okay.
Right? Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, when it becomes a problem is when people are like, get rid of all the Black immigrants, and you're telling me this, and I'm just looking at you like, hello, maybe you're confused. You're talking about me, right? And so when someone is saying, who's coming into power, that they're going to get rid of birthright citizenship and you have people cheering in the Black community because they think that that's somehow going to make their lives better. It's like the understanding that no, you got relatives and cousins and friends and coworkers and neighbors who are going to be picked off based on that. And of course, since the entire African American population depends on birthright citizenship as the basis of the citizenship to the United States, they coming after you next.
Yeah, I didn't want to point that part out yet, that obvious point, because I was afraid I was going to start cussing, and we can't lose, the KPFK can't lose their license. But yeah, the Nipsey effect. His mom, I believe, is from New Orleans or Louisiana, if not necessarily New Orleans, Louisiana. Issa Rae, whose mother is, I believe, from Louisiana. Her father is Senegalese.
Correct.
I forgot the brother's name. But, those of us who are old enough to remember that Snoop Dogg, before he was beloved and so cuddly to America, was on trial for murder of a quote unquote another gang member. That gang member, I believe, was either Ethiopian or Eritrean. So Black migrants are thoroughly, especially here in Los Angeles, I'd say thoroughly integrated throughout the Black community. It's not as separate as people want to make out or people actually believe. In addition to, like I said, the stupidity of trying to get rid of birthright citizenship, I got to leave that discussion alone, or else I'm gonna stop cussing. You take it now. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it is important to point out the interconnection, because the way that it's described is like Black migrants just got here. Black migrants did not just get here. They've been here. We've been here for a long time. My parents came here in the 60s, and my father's brother came shortly thereafter, and they came right here to California, right here to the Los Angeles area, right? And so this is not something that is new. And I think that we have to really be careful to make sure that we don't, fall into some kind of fantasy land where we pretend that a world exists that doesn't exist. What is online and the kinds of fighting and disparaging that you see online is not really what is happening in the streets. I mean, I think of some of our most beloved places in LA as Black people, like Leimert Park or Africatown. I mean, we're literally calling it Africatown, right? And that is a place that you go to and you see us, for the most part, in all of our diasporic fabulousness. A place where you're just as likely to see folks coming out to some kind of rally in support of Haiti as you are people coming to talk about, something and fight up against police murder of a Black person who may be African American in Los Angeles. Like, this is where our culturally we blend, politically we blend, socially we blend. And that is what our real life actually is. And so I think it behooves us to pay attention to what's going on with migration policy, to push for migration policies that hold on to and protect the human dignity and humanity of Black people, and that we think of how we're going to do that together, as opposed to being the step cousins or whatever of each other, right? That doesn't make sense. We come from a people who call each other cousins, whether we're blood related or not. That should not be changed now because of what's going on with people outside our community.
I'm speaking with Nana Gyamfi. She's the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, BAJI, a Black US-based national organization that fights for the rights of Black migrants and African Americans. She's based here in Los Angeles, California, where I have known her as an activist, an organizer, a movement attorney of at least 30 years. We're not going to tell all our ages today, but at least 30 years doing this type of work. Before I get too carried away, because I do want to ask you about West Africa, I want to remind you, if you are listening on KPFK, if you are watching on the Black Liberation Media platform on YouTube, this is Rootwork on KPFK, the local edition, and KPFK is in its December Fund Drive, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or our website address, kpfk.org. December Fund Drive, got to keep the transmitter up. The transmitter, the tower, the largest signal, I believe, west of the Mississippi, certainly throughout the state of California, over 100,000 watts. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. We need, it's the last day, or excuse me, day before the last day, December 20th, the last date of the December Fund Drive. We need y'all to make those donations, become members of the station so you can have a say in the governance of KPFK. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. As I mentioned earlier, Nana Gyamfi has a show here on KPFK on Wednesdays called Conversations on the Way, Wednesdays at 7 a.m. My show, Rootwork, airs here locally on the third and fourth Thursdays of the month at 7 a.m. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, or kpfk.org. Nana, you are currently in Ghana, West Africa. Literally, you were flying all day the other day. You made it there. You're in the hotel room sharing with us now. You got to bring me back some kente and some Adinkra jewelry. I just got to throw that part out there. But in addition to that, you are from Ghana. One of the homes, one of the many homes of historical Pan-African sentiment on the continent of Africa, the country of Kwame Nkrumah. And what we're seeing now, most recently, as 2024 is coming to an end, we're seeing this movement in West Africa, in French-speaking West Africa, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, their movements to throw the French out of their countries, and Senegal has joined recently, in addition to throwing out French and French influence in their country. Talk to our audience about that if you can.
So it's very interesting in terms of a development. When we think about the independence movements of the 50s and 60s, if you include Southern Africa, it goes all the way into the 90s, right? But this early pieces, early movements, this idea of doing confederations obviously was also happening there, right? So you had like Ghana, Guinea, Mali. Mali, it's interesting, seems to get itself in the mix every single time. But you had these different confederations where people or leaders got their countries together and said, hey, let's see what we can do together, given that we have this same energy about having sovereignty, right? And being able to also be in solidarity and in union with one another. And we see this again now. So we saw this in the 50s and the 60s on the continent in particular, but then we see this again now. And with this particular confederation, it happens because of this push starting in one country to get the French out, based upon just the complete anti-Blackness, usury, imperialism of France. Now, that is not to say, and I want to be real clear about this, that these other countries, including the United States, do not have the same level of imperialism that they're engaging in on the continent of Africa. And I want to say that because sometimes people make it seem like France is some kind of exceptionally terrible place or country. And it is terrible, but it's not exceptionally terrible in comparison to all the other countries. The difference is that with these particular countries and the way that France has their former quote unquote colonies, they base everything in France. So all your money is being held in France as a country. Your currency is depending upon the French currency, right? The franc. And they control what the value of your currency is. So they do a little more, let's say, than the British do with the Commonwealth countries, for example, of which Ghana is one. They do a little more, even though you're supposed to be an independent country. And basically what happened with these countries is they said enough. France, for example, runs on nuclear energy, requires uranium. 25% or more of the uranium that France gets comes from Niger. And what does Niger get? Other than exploitation and suffering. They allegedly had the French and the US there to help with so-called terrorism. That wasn't doing anything. All it was doing was just having the US and France actually engaging in their own forms of terrorism inside of the countries. And so these countries got together really last year, but then it's been progressively moving into this year and said, hey, well, first they were doing it sort of separately, but in collaboration, saying, hey, let's work together as opposed to depending upon France to see what we can do ourselves. It took it to another level where they had to create an alliance when the West went to ECOWAS, which is supposed to be a West, the economic West African state, supposed to be the West African portion of this unified vision that Nkrumah and other Pan-Africanists had, and said, we may need you to go to war against your sibling countries in support and in protection of our European and US interests. And this is when those countries said, oh no, we gonna get together, because if we're gonna be, if you attack Niger, you attack all of us, which was a super bold move, supported completely by the people in the streets, people surrounding the French embassy, people surrounding the AFRICOM buildings of the US saying, get out, get out, get out. That has happened. And it actually, to some accounts, the economy of these countries has actually improved. Of course, there's concerns because these are not elected, leaders, which is always a concern for the West. And there's also a concern with regard to Russia and this Wagner group having replaced now the support on the security end with respect to terrorism. So that is sort of the background and context for the situation that we see now, culminating in a conference last month in Niger, where folks came from all over the continent and really all over the world to support this alliance of Sahel states.
Yes, and most recently, I know there was a recognition of a massacre of Senegalese soldiers, a recognition, I believe, in Senegal, if not Dakar, another part of Senegal, of soldiers who fought on behalf of France during World War II, about 80 years ago or so. And because those soldiers were not paid, were not compensated, and demanded their wages, they were massacred by French soldiers.
Yes, they were.
Or the French government. And so the nerve of these people to go to ECOWAS and say, we might need you to go to war for us. I'm sorry, say what now? Just the absolute,
absolutely.
The caucasity knows no bounds. It really doesn't.
But here's the other piece of that. ECOWAS didn't say, get out of here. See, this is the thing, which is the reason why the alliance had to do what the alliance did, right? Why these countries formed this alliance, because it was clear that ECOWAS was not clear about the role that it should be playing, and that there was actually a threat and a concern. And Ghana's an ECOWAS country. I mean, very disappointing that Ghana, along with other countries, but I'm Ghanaian and I'm here in Ghana, right? So let me speak on Ghana. Just Ghana, land of Nkrumah, you've already laid it out. Very disappointing that the response was not, oh, wait a minute, we didn't create this ECOWAS for you. This is supposed to be for us, and we're supporting whatever our siblings are doing and having those conversations. And instead was, yes, Abalsa, what you want us to do? And only when they saw just the outpouring within their own countries, as well as within the countries of the alliance, did ECOWAS back down.
That's a shame. And I remember thinking, again, when you talk about many of these West African leaders who have not been elected, a lot of them are military. I think back, there's always that issue there's always that problem. But I do think back to when Jerry Rawlings was president of Ghana. He also came out of the military. He also had a coup, But there were always those Pan-African overtures.
Right. Thomas Sankara comes out of the military.
Of course. And we see
what I mean?
we know what happened to him, but yes, it's a concern when the military, I know it's a concern for me whenever I see military leaders just taking power from the people. But it appears that this reiteration, something different has been happening. Something different has been going on. The kind of thing that we've actually been hoping for a while, where the people who are in power, whether they're elected or military, actually listen to the will of the people on the street and either implement it or make sure those who are responsible for implementing it implement it.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about things like having a common currency. They're talking about things, obviously having each other's back. That's how they started. They're talking about having the free borders, right? Which just a person that cares about human rights and migration as a human right, as well as someone that's looking at immigration and the global anti-Blackness, even within the continent of Africa and the Caribbean, right? Of immigration policy, to see something where they're saying, hey, when it comes to our folks, we want to see how we can be more open in terms of borders, is really important and really critical, and something that is a positive sign. I think, we've got a little bit more time to figure out and to see how some other pieces turn out. I'm really interested to see, for example, the role of women in this Alliance of the Sahel. I've seen a couple high-profile women that have been lifted up, particularly in the medical area, medical field, etc., but not clear. Unlike with Thomas Sankara, for example, who was very clear about the role of women being critical and part of how you define whether your country is a country worth spit. And I haven't heard that kind of language or descriptions that coming out of this alliance or the leaders of the alliance. So I think that's going to be one to look at, as well as other marginalized folks, right? What is that going to be? I'm sitting here in Ghana with the potential passage of an anti-LGBTQ bill that will allow folks to be extradited from other countries who flee here based upon their engaging in what will be illegal activity if this bill is passed, which is, again, very disappointing in a country like Ghana. But I don't know what does that look like? How far are human rights going to be respected within this alliance? I am still hopeful, even if there's other issues that we may see later, that it has brought up, it's really garnered and gathered the thoughts, the demands of the youth, the demands of people who are looking for something more than just being serfs and enslaved to the West, to Europe and the United States. And they have answered that call. And it reverberates throughout the entire continent. And as you pointed out, throughout the world. And that's always a positive thing, right? Everything may not be completely exactly how we textbook would like it to be, but it is always a positive thing. And it gives us the opportunity to press for more where we feel that more is needed.
I've been speaking with Nana Gyamfi, Executive Director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, a Black US-based national organization that fights for the rights of Black migrants as well as African Americans. We started out talking about concerns from the immigrant rights community, concerns that we're hoping will be addressed by the Biden administration as it heads on out that door. We've just talked about the latest developments on the continent of Africa, West Africa in particular, with some of the French-speaking countries. Real quick, Nana, because we don't have a lot of time left. When we talked about Biden and immigration policy earlier, you talked about the fact that you are hoping that temporary protective status, TPS, becomes extended. Is it safe to say, well, lots of folks need it, but is this because of the crises, the current crises happening in Sudan and Haiti as we speak?
Yes. I mean, what we're really looking for is permanent protections for everyone. So the temporary piece is for us at BAJI really temporary, not just a continuation over and over of the temporary grant, but we really want a permanent grant. But we have some crises right now, which is what temporary protective status is supposed to support with. If you look at a country like Haiti, where you can't even land planes. At this point, the United States is not landing planes. They shooting at the planes, but you're landing deportation planes. You can't go there. But if you're being deported, the U.S. will send you there, right? And with Sudan, we know what's happening with the war there. So there's some people that need some support right now that are in this country that are in danger of being deported, and those people should be protected.
And if I'm not mistaken, Sudan has the largest number of displaced persons currently. Is that in the world?
That is in the world. And understanding that there were people who applied to come here when they saw that the war was breaking out, and the U.S. Embassy closed and kept those people's passports, thereby making it dang near impossible for them to be able to go someplace else. So the United States should be doing something. They did it for Ukraine. Ukraine is the floor. If you can be united for Ukraine, you should be in solidarity for Sudan.
Ukraine is the floor. For the Black Liberation Media audience or the KPFK audience who wants to know more about what BAJI is doing, what you are doing, Nana, how can they find that out?
Please go to BAJI.org, BAJR.org. That's our website. You can also find us at InstaBAJI.
BAJI. You said BAJR.
Oh, did I? Sorry. BAJI.org. I'm so tired. BAJI.org. And you can also find us on Instagram at InstaBAJI, and on what we still call Twitter at BAJI Tweet.
Thank you so much. Have you had any sleep yet?
I really have not, because I'm totally off time, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I wish you good, restful sleep and enjoy your stay in Ghana. Stay safe, hurry up, and return safely to Los Angeles. Don't forget my kente. Don't forget my Adinkra jewelry. And if you get a chance to hit the university, a couple of books would be nice. I'll send you some money. You ain't got to worry. It's all good.
Send me some money. Send me a list. We will talk.
Thank you so much, Nana Gyamfi, for being on Rootwork today.
Thank you for having me. Always enjoyable.
818-985-5735. 818-985-KPFK. On the web at kpfk.org. KPFK-Pacifica Radio, we are currently in our December winter last fund drive of the year. Your support is needed to keep this station on the air, to keep the transmitter transmitting 100,000 watts. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. You go to the phones and make a secure donation. You can go to the website, kpfk.org. Gary Baca on the boards at KPFK. Are you there, Gary?
Absolutely, right here with you, Nana and Tandi.
Can you let people know what they might find in their stocking? KPFK right now.
Well, they might find a KPFK tote bag. You can call now at 818-985-5735. Currently, our website page, our donate page is down right now. So just be patient with that. You can go back to that later on today. Also, they can get the KPFK t-shirt, which is a great addition to the family. It's a black t-shirt in red and white with a big microphone and electricity coming out, and it says KPFK Independent Radio. So folks, you can go to the website as well later on and find these items. But call now at 818-985-5735. We also have Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, The Message, for $150 pledge that supports this radio station. It supports this program, and it keeps us on the air. So if we can get at least two of you to get the Ta-Nehisi Coates book, The Message, that would be a $300 pledge. And of course, you know, he was almost banned. His book was almost banned in South Carolina. He had to go down there and talk to the folks out there, and he writes about that. Also, he went to Palestine and was criticized about that. His book, The Message, they think it was one-sided for the Palestinians, but his answer to that is that, voiceless are the people in Palestine. So he wanted to give them a voice, and he wrote about it and what they're going through. And so it's an eye-opening read, 818-985-5735. That's a $150 donation to the station. Of course, you can support the transmitter fund as well. We are updating our transmitter, and we got a huge donation, $5,000 donation from John Densmore from The Doors, who also contributed, and he is challenging other folks out there to match his pledge. Also, Robbie Krieger from The Doors yesterday pledged $5,000. So our goal is $20,000 for that update with the transmitter. So we're a little short, but not much. But we're asking you to go to your phone at 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. But most of all, you support independent media, that we stay on the air and that we broadcast the great shows that you enjoy, that you deserve, that you need, such as Democracy Now! And Rootwork, as well as Tom Hartman and all the rest of the great programs, Global Village, from 11 to 1 p.m. Today with John Snyder. Just so many great programs. I'm on Tuesdays from 11 to 1. And call now at 818-985-5735 and support these programs. Tondi, we only have about a minute left. What would you like to say to the folks out there?
I would like to thank everyone who has called in and pledged thus far. I want to thank you for calling. I want to thank the people who are going to wait until the last minute tomorrow to make a pledge. I know how it be. I know how it is, but it's the thought that counts. So thank you so much for making that pledge thus far, today and tomorrow. And I want to thank you for going to the web. I want to thank the Black Liberation Media audience for putting up with me. And yes, Yipper, there were no tech issues today. Thank you very much. Pat myself on the back for that. Thank you so much to Gary Baca for hanging out with me. Thank you so much to Nana Gyamfi for cutting into her sleep time over there in Ghana. Was it a 12-hour difference to be a guest on the show today? Thank you, thank you, thank you all so much. Greatly appreciate you. We're going to get up out of here. Again, Rootwork Local, the 3rd and 4th Thursdays of the month. That means I'm going to be here next Thursday, day after Christmas, which means it's Kwanzaa. That should be an interesting show. Anyway, my name is Tondi Cesare Shimaringa. You all take care, stay safe, and I will catch you on the next one.
And critical. So join me, Carrie Harrison, each and every Friday